The council chamber floated in space between two stars. Inside, representatives from thousands of species gathered to discuss the problems of the galaxy. Ambassador Dae-Won Kim stood at the human podium, his gray hair neat, his hands folded calmly in front of him. He had been doing this job for 20 years now. He was very good at it. Today, the Vexari Dominion wanted to take land from the Lyrian people. The Lyrians were peaceful farmers who had never hurt anyone. The Vexari were warriors who always wanted more territory. This was not a new story in the galaxy. War Master Thekmor of the Vexari stood tall in his battle armor. His voice was loud and angry. He said the Lyrian worlds belonged to his people by right of strength. He said the Vexari would take those worlds with or without council permission. The Lyrian representative was shaking. She was small and blue and looked like she might cry. Many other species in the chamber looked away. Nobody wanted to fight the Vexari. They were too strong, too violent. Dae-Won raised his hand calmly. He spoke in a quiet voice that somehow filled the entire chamber. He talked about peace. He talked about fairness. He talked about finding solutions that helped everyone. He did not raise his voice even once. For 6 weeks, Dae-Won worked. He met with the Vexari in private. He met with the Lyrians. He met with council members. He barely slept. His assistant Young Mi-Han brought him food and told him to rest, but he just smiled and kept working. Young Mi was 35 years old and had grown up on many different alien worlds. Her parents had been diplomats too. She believed that all species could live together in peace. She believed in the work they were doing. Finally, Dae-Won found an answer. He discovered 3 other star systems that had the resources the Vexari needed. These systems were empty. Nobody lived there. The council agreed to give them to the Vexari if they left the Lyrians alone. War Master Thekmor agreed. The crisis was over. The Lyrians were safe. Everyone praised the humans for their clever diplomacy. Dae-Won smiled tiredly and thanked them all, but Thekmor talked to his officers in private. He told them that humans were weak. He said humans would always give you what you wanted if you threatened violence. He said this was useful information. Far away from the council chamber, a medical ship called the Prometheus received a distress signal. Captain Hana Choi read the message on her screen. A Vexari mining colony had been hit by a terrible plague. Thousands were dying. Hana was 42 years old. She had short black hair and quick hands. She had been a ship captain for 15 years. In that time, she had saved more lives than she could count. It did not matter what species needed help. When someone was dying, Hana went to save them. Her first officer looked worried. He reminded her that the Vexari had just threatened to start a war. Maybe they should ask permission from Earth Command first. Maybe this was not safe. Hana shook her head. She set course for the Vexari colony. She did not need permission to save lives. That was what humans did. Dr. Sung Lee was ready when they arrived. He was 51 years old and had gray at his temples. He had studied alien biology his whole life. He knew how to heal species that humans had only met 100 years ago. He was very good at his job. The Vexari colony was in bad shape. The plague had spread fast. The local doctors did not know how to stop it. Dr. Sung and his team worked for 72 hours without sleeping. They moved from patient to patient. They mixed medicines. They ran tests. They did not stop. Lieutenant J. Park stood guard while the medical teams worked. He was 29 years old and had joined the Prometheus 2 years ago. Before that, he had been in Earth's military. He had trained to fight. But now he helped protect doctors instead. He told himself this was better. Sometimes Jay watched the Vexari soldiers. They carried big weapons. They looked at the human medical team with strange expressions. Jay could not tell if they were grateful or angry. Maybe both. After 3 days, Dr. Sung found the cure. The plague stopped spreading. People stopped dying. The humans had saved 12,000 Vexari lives. The Vexari governor came to thank them. He made a formal speech. He said the Vexari Dominion was grateful. He gave Captain Hana a medal. She accepted it politely, but after the ceremony, Jay heard some Vixari soldiers talking. They were laughing. One of them said that humans were like servants who came when you called. Another said that humans were too soft to be dangerous. They all thought this was funny. Jay felt anger burn in his chest. He wanted to tell them they were wrong. He wanted to show them that humans could be dangerous if they needed to be. But he stayed quiet. That was not his job anymore. His job was to protect the doctors. His job was to keep the peace. Back at the council chamber, more species started making demands. They had seen how the Vexari got what they wanted. They had seen how humans always helped, always compromised, always chose peace. A species called the Torvin demanded that humans give them advanced medical technology. They said it was unfair that humans were better at healing than everyone else. Daewon arranged a technology sharing program. The Zalari Empire wanted humans to stop trading with their enemies. Daewon negotiated a complicated trade agreement that made everyone happy. A group of mining corporations wanted human engineers to fix their dangerous equipment for free. Daewon set up a volunteer program. Young Mai watched her boss work. She saw him smile and nod and find solutions. But she also saw how tired he looked. She saw how his hands shook sometimes when he thought nobody was watching. One night, very late, young Mi found Daewon alone in his office. He was looking at reports from Earth. Human colonies were stretched thin. Human resources were running low. Human people were tired. She asked him if they were doing the right thing. He looked at her for a long time before answering. Then he said that humans had spent 10,000 years fighting wars. They had almost destroyed themselves many times. When they finally reached the stars and met other species, they had promised themselves they would be different. They would be better. They would choose peace. Always. Young Mai nodded. She understood. She believed in this promise too. A month later, Daewon gave a speech to the entire Galactic Council. He talked about the 312 years that humans had been part of the galaxy. He talked about all the lives saved, all the wars prevented, all the peace maintained. He said that humanity would always choose diplomacy over violence, always choose mercy over vengeance, always choose hope over fear. The council members applauded. But in the back rows, War Master Thekmore smiled. Around the chamber, representatives from a dozen predatory species exchanged glances. They had learned something important today. They had learned that humans would never fight back. On the Prometheus, Captain Hana looked at her mission schedule. They were being called to help someone almost every day now. Medical emergencies, rescue missions, disaster relief. Her crew was exhausted. But when she asked Earth Command if they could slow down, the answer was always the same. People needed help. Humans help people. That is what they do. Dr. Sung treated his 1,000th alien patient that week. Then his 2,000th. Then his 3,000th. He stopped counting. He just kept working. Lieutenant Jay watched and listened. He heard more and more species talking about humans the way the Vexari soldiers had. Soft, weak, easy to use. He said nothing. But late at night, alone in his quarters, he practiced with his weapons. Old weapons, military weapons. Weapons that humans were not supposed to need anymore. He told himself he was just staying sharp, just keeping old skills alive, just in case. But deep down, Jay wondered how long humans could keep being kind to people who saw kindness as weakness. He wondered what would happen if someone pushed too far. He did not know that he would find out very soon. None of them did. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson that would echo for 1,000 years, but that lesson would cost a terrible price. 2 years passed. The galaxy learned a simple rule. If you needed something, ask the humans. If you wanted something, demand it from the humans. They would always say yes. They would always help. They would always choose peace. Captain Hana sat in her command chair and looked at the messages flooding her screen. 16 distress calls in the last 3 days. 12 of them were probably real emergencies. 4 of them were definitely fake. She had learned to tell the difference. A colony would call saying they had a medical crisis. The Prometheus would rush there. When they arrived, they would find a minor problem that the colony could have handled themselves. But since the humans were already there, maybe they could also fix the water system, and repair the power generators, and teach them advanced farming techniques. Hana always said yes. What else could she do? Leave people without water? Without power? Without food? She was a ship captain, but before that she was human. Humans help people, even when those people are using them. Her crew was exhausted. Dr. Sung had stopped smiling months ago. He just worked quietly, treating patient after patient, species after species. His hands were steady, but his eyes were tired. One day, Dr. Sung was treating a Vexari officer who had been injured in a stupid accident. The officer looked at him and laughed. He said humans were the galaxy's servants. He said humans existed to take care of everyone else. He said this like it was a funny joke. Dr. Sung said nothing. He finished bandaging the officer's arm. He did his job perfectly, like always. But that night, alone in his medical bay, he sat in the dark for a long time. He wondered when helping people had turned into being used by them. At the council chamber, things were getting worse. The Vexari Dominion created a border dispute with a human colony called New Sol. The colony was 300 years old. It was humanity's first settlement beyond the solar system. 10 million humans lived there. War Master Thekmor claimed the colony was built on Vexari territory. This was a lie. Everyone knew it was a lie. The Vexari had maps from 300 years ago proving the land was unclaimed when humans settled there. But Thekmor did not care about truth. He cared about testing human weakness. Ambassador Day Wan negotiated for 6 weeks. He showed the old maps. He brought witnesses. He made logical arguments. But the Vexari would not back down. They said they would take the colony by force if humans did not leave. The council watched. Nobody helped. They had seen this happen before. Humans always compromised in the end. Day Wan contacted Earth. He talked to the government for 3 days. Then he returned to the council and agreed to relocate New Sol. 10 million humans would leave their homes. They would give up 3 centuries of history. They would move to another world and start over. The galaxy praised him for his wisdom and commitment to peace. Day Wan smiled and thanked them. But his hands shook so badly that he had to hold them behind his back. Youngmi watched her boss walk back to his office. She followed him. She closed the door behind them. Then she asked the question she had been afraid to ask for months. How long could humanity keep doing this? Day Wan sat down heavily. He looked older than she had ever seen him. He said that humans had made a promise 300 years ago. They had promised to be different. They had promised to choose peace over war, mercy over revenge, hope over fear. Breaking that promise would mean becoming the monsters they used to be. Young Mi understood. But she also thought about the 10 million people who were losing their homes. She thought about the medical crews who were collapsing from exhaustion. She thought about all the ways the galaxy was bleeding humanity dry, one small cut at a time. She had grown up believing that all species could live together in peace. She had believed that kindness would be returned with kindness. She had been wrong, but she did not know what to do about it. Lieutenant J was angry. He tried to hide it, but anger burned in him every day. He watched species steal from humanity and laugh about it. He watched them create fake emergencies just to waste human time and resources. He watched them treat human helpers like servants or slaves. He had been a soldier once. He knew how to fight. He knew how to win. But he had joined the Prometheus because he believed in something better than fighting. He had believed that humanity's peaceful path was the right path. Now he was not sure. How was it right to let people hurt you? How was it peaceful to let bullies take whatever they wanted? He did not have answers. He just had anger and training and weapons he was not supposed to use. One day, Jay discovered something interesting. He was reviewing security files and found coded communications between several species. They had formed a secret agreement. They were coordinating their demands on humanity. They were deliberately draining human resources. They were testing to see how far they could push before humans pushed back. Jay brought this information to Captain Hana. She read the files. Her face went hard. She forwarded everything to Earth Command and Ambassador Day Wan. Day Wan read the files. He sat alone in his office for a long time. Then he sent a message to Earth asking for guidance. The answer came back 3 days later. Continue current policies. Humanity will not be provoked into violence. We will maintain the peace, so Day Wan continued. Young Mi continued. Hana and Dr. Sung and Jay continued. All across the galaxy, humans continued to help and give and compromise and sacrifice. A human agricultural world grew food for 3 billion people across 6 different species. Raiders attacked the harvest convoys and stole everything. The council investigated for 2 months and did nothing. The human farmers gave their emergency reserves to the species who were starving. The farmers would go hungry themselves, but at least nobody would die. A human research station developed a cure for a genetic disease affecting the Torvan species. The Torvan government demanded that humans give them the cure for free. They also demanded the research data and the equipment used to create it. Daewon negotiated for 3 weeks. In the end, humanity gave them everything they asked for. A human colony tried to establish trade agreements that would be fair to both sides. The other species refused. They said humans should just give them resources without asking for anything in return. That was what humans did, right? The colony agreed. Young Mai started keeping records. She documented every incident where humanity was exploited. She documented every fake emergency. She documented every broken promise from other species. She documented every time the council did nothing to protect human interests. She did not know why she was doing this. Maybe she thought someone would care. Maybe she thought the evidence would matter someday. Mostly she just needed to write it down. She needed to remember that this was not normal. This was not right, even if everyone pretended it was. The Prometheus responded to 43 distress calls in a single month. 17 of them were real emergencies. 26 were not. Captain Hana saved lives and fixed problems and gave help to people who did not appreciate it. Her crew worked until they could barely stand. Then they worked more. One night, Hana found Dr. Sung sleeping at his desk. She woke him gently and told him to go to his quarters. He looked at her with empty eyes and asked why they kept doing this. Why did they keep helping people who hated them? Hana did not have a good answer. She said it was who humans were. She said they had to be better than the people who hurt them. She said that giving up on helping others would mean losing their humanity. Dr. Sung nodded slowly. Then he went to his quarters. But Hana stayed on the bridge. She looked at her mission schedule. More calls for help. More demands. More species who saw humans as tools to be used. She wondered the same thing Dr. Sung had asked. How long could humanity keep doing this? How many small cuts could they endure before they bled out completely? At the council, 5 different species made demands on the same day. Each one wanted something from humanity. Each one threatened problems if humans refused. Each one knew that humans would say yes. Ambassador Daewon agreed to all of their demands. He smiled. He was diplomatic. He found solutions that required humans to give more and more and more. When he left the council chamber, Young Mi was waiting. She asked him quietly how long humanity could keep doing this. How much more could they give before there was nothing left? Daewon stopped walking. He looked at her. His face was tired and old. He said they had no choice. Violence was not who humanity was anymore. They had left that behind, but as he spoke, his hands were shaking. Young Mi saw it. She saw the cracks forming. She saw the weight crushing her mentor. She said nothing. She just walked beside him back to their offices. Across the galaxy, humanity endured. They helped and gave and compromised. They chose peace over strength. They chose mercy over justice. They chose to be kind even when kindness was seen as weakness. The other species watched and learned. They learned that humans would never fight back. They learned that humans could be pushed further and further. They learned wrong lessons that would cost them dearly, but that cost would not come yet. First, something worse had to happen. Something that would finally answer the question Young Mi and Dr. Sung and Captain Hana had all been asking. Something that would show the galaxy what happened when the gentle giant stopped being gentle. The ship was called the Dandelion. It was painted bright yellow and covered with pictures of flowers and stars. Inside were 4,000 children between the ages of 3 and 8. They were on an educational voyage, visiting peaceful systems and learning about the galaxy. The children came from all over human space. They sang songs and played games and looked at alien worlds through the big windows. Their teachers smiled and answered questions and kept them safe. Everyone was happy. It was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime. The Dandelion traveled with 5 escort ships. They were civilian vessels with no weapons. Galactic peace treaties said that educational ships could not carry weapons. Humans always followed the treaties. They always followed the rules. The convoy was in neutral space, far from any military zones. They were visiting a nebula that glowed with beautiful colors. The children pressed against the windows and pointed at the swirling gases. Some of them were drawing pictures. Some were writing reports for their schools back home. Then the Vixari warships appeared, 12 of them, massive and covered in weapons. They surrounded the small human convoy. The Dandelion's captain received a message: surrender or be destroyed. The captain was a woman named Jiwoo. She was 53 years old and had been working with children for 30 years. She sent messages to the Vixari ships. She explained that this was an educational vessel. She explained that there were only children aboard. She begged them to let the convoy pass. War Master Thekmor himself answered. He said the children were now hostages. He said Earth must give the Vixari 3 colony worlds and a major trade route. He said humans had 24 hours to agree or the children would die. The 5 escort ships tried to run. They put themselves between the Dandelion and the Vixari warships. They broadcast distress signals. They did everything they could to protect the children. The Vixari destroyed all 5 ships in less than a minute. 2,300 adults died. Teachers, engineers, support staff, crew members, people who had dedicated their lives to helping children learn and grow. They died trying to protect those children one last time. The Dandelion was alone now. Captain Jiwoo sealed the children in the safest parts of the ship. She told them not to be afraid. She lied and said everything would be okay. Then Vixari soldiers boarded the ship. They moved the children to cargo holds. 4,000 children crying and scared, calling for their parents. The youngest ones did not understand what was happening. The older ones understood too well. They were all terrified. War Master Thekmor made a video. He stood in the cargo hold surrounded by weeping children. He spoke to the camera. He mocked humanity's weakness. He said humans were pathetic. He said this proved that kindness was just another word for cowardice. The video was sent to Earth. It was sent to every human colony. It was broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone saw the children crying. Everyone heard Thekmor laughing. Ambassador Daewon was in a council meeting when he received the news. He stopped talking mid-sentence. He stood very still. His face went completely blank. Then he excused himself and left the chamber. He went to his office and contacted Earth. He spoke to the government. He said he would agree to every demand. He would give the Vixari anything they wanted. Just give him time to negotiate. Just let him save the children, Earth agreed. Daewon returned to the council and began negotiating with the Vixari. He offered them the 3 colony worlds. He offered them the trade route. He offered them everything Thekmor had demanded. Thekmor increased his demands. Now he wanted 6 colony worlds. Now he wanted 2 trade routes. Now he wanted humanity to pay reparations for imaginary crimes. He was testing how far he could push. He was enjoying this. Young Mi watched her mentor negotiate. Daewon did not sleep. He did not eat. He just talked and offered and compromised. He looked like he was dying, but he kept going. He would save those children. He would find a way. The Galactic Council met to discuss the crisis. Many species said they were concerned. Some said this was unfortunate. But none of them did anything. None of them helped. They just watched to see what would happen. Captain Hana received emergency orders. The Prometheus was the closest human military vessel to the Dandelion. She was told to prepare for a rescue mission. She gathered her crew. Lieutenant J checked weapons that had not been used in 300 years. Then new orders came from Earth. Stand down. Do not attempt rescue. Ambassador Daewon was negotiating. Violence would endanger the children. Humanity would solve this through diplomacy. Hana read the orders 3 times. Then she looked at Jay. His face was hard. His hands were clenched into fists. She knew what he was thinking because she was thinking it too. But they followed orders. They always followed orders. 6 days passed. 6 days of negotiations while 4,000 children stayed in Vixari cargo holds. 6 days of Day 1 offering more and more. 6 days of Thekmor demanding more and more. 6 days of the galaxy watching and doing nothing. On the 7th day, War Master Thekmor made another video. He stood in the cargo hold again. But this time, 200 children stood in a separate area. They were the oldest ones, the 8-year-olds. They looked tired and scared, but they were trying to be brave. Thekmor spoke to the camera. He said that humanity was taking too long. He said the Vixari were not patient people. He said this was a lesson about respecting strength. Then Vixari soldiers raised their weapons and shot all 200 children. The video showed everything. It showed the children falling. It showed them dying. It showed Thekmore smiling. The video ended with a message. Humanity had 24 hours to accept all Vexari demands. If they refused, 200 more children would die. Then 200 more. Then 200 more. Until humanity learned its place. The video was broadcast everywhere. Every human saw it. Every alien saw it. The galaxy watched 200 human children get murdered for no reason except to prove a point. Ambassador Daewon watched the video alone in his office. He sat very still. His hands were not shaking anymore. His face was calm. He looked almost peaceful. He stood up. He walked to the council chamber. The meeting was already in session. Species were discussing the situation. Some said it was tragic. Some said humanity should accept the demands. Some said nothing at all. Daewon walked to the human podium. Everyone stopped talking. They looked at him. They expected him to beg. They expected him to cry. They expected him to offer even more concessions. Instead, Daewon smiled. It was a terrible smile. Cold and empty and nothing like the warm, diplomatic smile he usually wore. He thanked the council for their time and consideration during this crisis. He said he appreciated their thoughts and prayers. Then he said that humanity would no longer participate in negotiations. He said that humans needed to have a different conversation with the Vexari. A private conversation. Species to species. A council member asked what he meant. Daewon just smiled that cold smile. He said that the Vexari wanted to see what humans looked like when they stopped being diplomatic. Now they would find out. Young Mi stood at the back of the chamber. She watched in shock as Daewon gathered his materials and walked out. She followed him. So did the rest of the human diplomatic staff. They left the council chamber quietly. They did not look back. In orbit around Earth, something changed. Ships that had been registered as civilian vessels received new authorization codes. Panels slid away, revealing weapons that technically did not exist. Crews received orders they had been training for in secret for 3 centuries. Captain Hana stood on the bridge of the Prometheus. Her communications officer was reading incoming messages with a shocked expression. Hana listened quietly. Then she started giving orders in a calm, steady voice. Dr. Sung received new orders too. He started loading different supplies onto his medical bay. Emergency surgical equipment. Trauma supplies. Things he would need after a battle. He worked quickly and efficiently. His hands did not shake. Lieutenant J went to a briefing that lasted 2 hours. When he came out, his face was grim, but his eyes were bright. He had been waiting for this his whole life. He had been training for this. Now it was finally time. Across human space, 147 vessels changed. They had always been warships. They had just been pretending to be something else. Now they stopped pretending. Captain Hana looked at her tactical display. It showed the location of every ship in her fleet. It showed the coordinates where the Dandelion was being held. It showed the Vexari warships guarding it. Her communications officer asked what their orders were. Hana looked at the screen for a long moment. She thought about 4,000 children. She thought about 200 who were already dead. She thought about 300 years of peace. Then she spoke in a voice that was quiet but absolutely certain. Retrieve the children. By any means necessary, the fleet moved. 147 ships that had been humanitarian vessels yesterday. 147 warships today. They moved toward Vexari space. They moved toward the Dandelion. They moved toward a reckoning that was 3 centuries overdue. The galaxy was about to learn something it had forgotten. Humans had chosen to be kind. They had chosen to be peaceful. They had chosen to be gentle. But they had never lost the ability to be something else. And when you hurt their children, they stopped choosing kindness. For 312 years, the galaxy had known humans as healers and peacemakers. They had forgotten that Earth was a world of predators. They had forgotten that humans had climbed to the top of their food chain by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than anything else on their planet. They had forgotten that humans did not stop being dangerous. They had just chosen not to be. Now that choice was over. War Master Thekmore stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was confident. The humans had 48 hours left to accept his demands. After that, he would kill 200 more children. Then 200 more. Eventually, the humans would break. They always did. His sensors officer reported something strange. Human ships were approaching Vexari space. Many ships. Thekmore laughed. He had 200 warships in the area. The humans would never attack. They would just come to beg some more. Then his censors officer counted the human vessels. 147 ships. They were still registered as civilian vessels in the Galactic database. Medical ships, cargo ships, research vessels. Thekmore ordered his fleet to prepare to destroy them if necessary. It would be like swatting flies. The human ships did not slow down. They did not request permission to enter Vexari space. They just came, fast and silent and absolutely certain. Thekmore sent a message. He told the humans to stop or be destroyed. The humans did not answer. They just kept coming. Thekmore decided to teach them a lesson. He ordered his fleet to fire warning shots. The Vexari fleet opened fire, 200 warships against 147 civilian vessels. It should have been a slaughter. It should have been over in seconds. Instead, the human ships changed. Panels slid away. Weapons appeared. Weapons that had been hidden for 3 centuries. Weapons that the Vexari had never seen before. Weapons that were 300 years more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. The humans did not bother with warning shots. They just fired. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 200 Vexari warships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had 3 ships with minor damage. That was all. War Master Thekmore watched in horror as his fleet died. He tried to retreat. He tried to call for help. He tried to understand what had just happened. Nothing made sense. Humans did not fight. Humans did not have weapons. Humans were weak, except they were not weak. They had never been weak. They had just been kind. And kind was not the same thing as weak. Thekmore had learned this too late. Captain Hana stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched the battle end. She felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction, no regret. She just had a job to do. The Vexari fleet was gone. Now she needed to get the children. Her intelligence officer had located the Dandelion. It was being held in a Vexari space station. The station was heavily guarded. There were at least 500 Vexari soldiers inside. They would fight to protect their prize. Hana did not care. She sent in her boarding teams. Lieutenant J led the first team. He had trained for this his entire life. He knew exactly what to do. The human soldiers moved through the Vexari station like ghosts. They were silent. They were fast. They were efficient. They had studied war for 10,000 years before they chose peace. They remembered every lesson. The Vexari soldiers never saw them coming. One moment the corridor was empty. The next moment it was full of humans. There was no warning. No chance to surrender, just quick, professional violence. Jay and his team reached the cargo hold where the children were kept. There were 30 Vexari soldiers guarding the door. They were supposed to kill the children if anything went wrong. That was their orders. They never got the chance. The human team eliminated all 30 guards in 90 seconds. The Vexari did not have time to raise an alarm. They did not have time to fire their weapons. They did not have time to do anything except die. Jay opened the cargo hold door. Inside, 3,800 children huddled together in fear. They were dirty and scared, and some of them were crying. But they were alive. Jay knelt down so he was at eye level with the nearest child. She was maybe 5 years old. He smiled at her. He made his voice gentle. He told her that they were going home now. He told her that everything was going to be okay. The child looked at him. She saw the weapon he was carrying. She saw the blood on his armor. She was smart enough to understand what had happened. But she was also 5 years old and she wanted to go home, so she took his hand. Dr. Sung was waiting on the Prometheus with his medical team. The children were brought aboard in groups. Some were injured. All were traumatized. Sung worked quickly, checking each child, treating their wounds, giving them medicine to help them sleep. He moved from child to child with steady hands and a calm voice. He had been a healer for 30 years. He knew how to make scared children feel safe. He smiled and spoke softly and told them they were going home. But inside, Dr. Sung felt something cold and hard. He thought about the 200 children who had been murdered. He thought about all the years he had spent saving Vexari lives. He thought about the Vexari officer who had called humans servants. He would still heal anyone who needed healing. That was who he was. But he would never again heal someone who hurt humans. Never again would he save the life of someone who saw kindness as weakness. The rescue took 4 hours from start to finish. Every child was recovered. Not one more child died. The human teams moved through that Vexari station like a surgical strike. Precise. Efficient. Absolutely deadly. War Master Thekmore watched from his damaged flagship. He watched his station go silent. He watched human ships leave with the children. He knew he had made a terrible mistake, but it was too late to fix it. Ambassador Daewon sat in his office on Earth. He had not slept in 8 days. Young Mi brought him reports about the rescue. All children recovered. Minimal human casualties. Mission success, Daewon read the reports. He nodded slowly. Then he stood up and walked to his communication terminal. He opened a channel that would broadcast to every species in the galaxy. Every government, every news service, every citizen who wanted to watch. Young Mi watched him prepare. She asked if he was sure about this. He looked at her with eyes that were harder than she had ever seen. He said he was very sure. The galaxy needed to understand something. Daewon began his broadcast. He spoke calmly and clearly. He said that humanity had given the galaxy 312 years of peace, healing, and mercy. He said that other species had taken this as weakness. He said they had been wrong. He said that the children were home now. He said that 200 children would never come home. He said that those 200 would not be forgotten. Then he announced that humanity was withdrawing from the Galactic Council. All medical aid would stop. All diplomatic services would end. All humanitarian missions would cease, effective immediately. He said that the galaxy had wanted to see what humans looked like when they stopped being kind. Now they knew. He hoped they were happy with what they found. The broadcast ended. Young Mai stood in silence. She did not know if this was the right choice. She did not know if humanity could ever go back to the way things were. She only knew that everything had changed. Across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcast. Some were shocked. Some were afraid. Some tried to pretend they had not been part of the problem, but everyone understood the message. Humans had been kind because they chose to be, not because they had to be. The galaxy had forgotten the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of violence. Now they remembered. Captain Hana brought the Prometheus back to Earth orbit. The children were transferred to hospitals and reunited with their families. There were tears and joy and relief, but there was also grief for the 200 who were gone. Hana stood at a window and watched the Earth turn below. Young Mai found her there. She asked the captain if they had done the right thing. If violence had been the answer, Hana was quiet for a long time. Then she said that humans had not changed. They had just stopped pretending. They had spent 3 centuries being kind while staying capable of violence. They had shown mercy while remembering how to fight. They had chosen peace while remaining dangerous. The galaxy had mistaken that choice for weakness. They had pushed and pushed until humans had no choice but to push back. And when humans pushed back, they did it with 300 years of restraint released all at once. Young Mi watched the Earth turn. She thought about everything that had happened. She thought about all the years of being used. She thought about the children who died. She thought about the future. She did not know what that future would look like, but she knew the galaxy had learned a lesson. Kindness was not weakness. Mercy was not surrender. And the species that spent 3 centuries saving lives could just as efficiently take them if they had to. The gentle giant had woken up. And the galaxy would never forget what it looked like when humans stopped being gentle. 6 months passed. The galaxy was falling apart without humans to hold it together. A plague hit the Torvan homeworld. It was a disease that Dr. Sung had cured 5 years earlier. But the Torvan had demanded the cure for free, and then never properly trained their doctors to use it. Now people were dying and there were no human medical ships to save them. The Torvan government sent messages to Earth begging for help. The messages were ignored. After 3 weeks, the Torvan sent a formal apology for their past treatment of humanity. They offered to pay for medical assistance. They promised to change. Dr. Sung read their message. He thought about all the times he had treated Torvan patients. He thought about how they had taken his knowledge and demanded more. He thought about the 200 children, then he replied. He said he would send medical teams, but there would be conditions. The Torvan would pay fair prices. They would respect human expertise. They would never again demand free help as if it was their right. If they broke these conditions, humans would never help them again. The Torvan agreed to everything. They had no choice. Without human help, millions would die. Dr. Sung sent his teams. They saved lives professionally and efficiently. Then they left. No extra help. No free gifts. Just the job they were paid to do. The Vexari Dominion collapsed in 90 days. For 3 centuries, they had expanded through conquest. They had taken territory from weaker species and ruled through fear. But they had relied on human diplomats to keep the peace between their many enemies. Without those diplomats, all the species the Vexari had hurt decided to get revenge. Wars erupted across Vexari space. Their empire burned. War Master Thekmor died when his flagship was destroyed by a coalition of species he had once terrorized. The galaxy watched the Vexari fall. They understood that this was a message. This was what happened when you pushed humanity too far. This was what happened when you hurt their children. 17 different species sent formal requests for humanity to return to the Galactic Council. All 17 requests were denied. Ambassador Daiwan sent polite responses explaining that humanity needed time to reconsider their relationship with the galaxy. The truth was simpler. Humanity did not trust the other species anymore. They had given 3 centuries of kindness and received exploitation in return. That trust would have to be earned back slowly. Very slowly. Young Mai spent her days creating new diplomatic protocols. She wrote careful rules about when humans would help and when they would refuse. She wrote guidelines about fair payment and mutual respect. She wrote consequences for species that tried to exploit human generosity. It was hard work. She had believed that kindness alone could build a better galaxy. Now she knew better. Kindness needed to be protected by boundaries. Mercy needed to be balanced with consequences. Hope needed to be guarded by strength. Captain Hana commanded a fleet now. 300 vessels that had been revealed as warships. They patrolled human space and escorted humanitarian missions. The Prometheus still helped people in need, but now it did so with enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Other species saw those weapons and understood. Humans were still helpers. They were still healers. But they were also warriors who had chosen not to fight. That choice could be taken away. The galaxy would be wise to remember that. Lieutenant J became the head of a new department called Protective Services. His job was to make sure human kindness never became human victimhood again. He trained teams to guard medical ships. He established protocols for responding to threats. He made sure humans could help people without being hurt for it. He was good at his job. He had always been a warrior. Now he was a warrior protecting healers. It felt right. 8 months after humanity left the Council, something changed. 50 species came to Earth together. They came with formal apologies. They came with offers of reparations. They came with new treaty proposals that protected human interests and prevented exploitation. They said they understood now. They understood that human kindness was a gift, not a weakness. They understood that mercy was a choice, not a requirement. They wanted to build something better, something fair. They asked humanity to give them another chance. Ambassador Daiwan met with them. He listened to their speeches. He read their proposals. He asked hard questions and demanded real answers. Then he said he needed time to consider. For 3 days, Daiwan thought. He talked with Captain Hana and Dr. Sung. He talked with young me and Lieutenant J. He talked with the families of the 200 children who had died. He asked them all the same question. Should humanity try again? The answers were mixed. Some said no. Some said yes. All of them said to be careful. All of them said to remember what happened last time. All of them said that kindness was good, but it needed to be protected. Daiwan made his decision. He called the 50 species back and said that humanity would return to the galactic community. But there would be conditions. New rules, new protections, new consequences for anyone who tried to exploit human generosity. The new council charter was very different from the old one. It included rules about fair payment for help. It included protections against manufactured emergencies. It included mandatory reciprocity and aid programs. Most importantly, it included automatic sanctions against any species that harmed human civilians. Those sanctions would be enforced by the human fleet. 300 warships that everyone knew existed now. 300 warships that reminded everyone what happened when you pushed humans too far. The 50 species agreed to everything. They signed the new charter. They promised to follow the new rules. They meant it. They had learned their lesson the hard way. A year after the Vexari took the children, Ambassador Daiwan returned to the council chamber. He looked different now. Still diplomatic, still professional, but harder. There was steel in his eyes that had not been there before. He gave a speech about the new era of cooperation. He talked about mutual respect and fair treatment. He talked about building a better galaxy together. But everyone heard the unspoken message underneath his words. Hurt us again and see what happens. The Prometheus resumed its humanitarian missions. Captain Hana and her crew traveled the galaxy saving lives. Dr. Sung treated patients of every species. They were still helpers. They were still healers. But they were different now. Every medical ship carried weapons now. Every humanitarian mission had armed guards. Every act of kindness came with the quiet understanding that humans could protect themselves if needed. Young Mi became the chief architect of cultural exchange programs. She built bridges between species again. She taught alien children about human culture, but she also taught them about boundaries. She taught them about respect. She taught them that friendship worked both ways. The galaxy entered a new era. It was better than before in many ways. Species that had once seen humans as servants now saw them as partners. Species that had demanded free help now paid fair prices. Species that had created fake emergencies now saved their requests for real problems. But it was also harder. The easy trust was gone. The simple faith in goodness was broken. Humanity had learned that kindness needed protection. The galaxy had learned that mercy had limits. These were painful lessons for everyone. 2 years after the incident, a memorial was built in Earth orbit. It was a simple structure made of white stone. On it were carved 200 names. The names of children who died because adults forgot how to treat each other with respect. Beneath the names was an inscription in every galactic language. It said, "They took our kindness as weakness. They learned the difference. May no one ever have to learn it again." Every human ship that left Earth passed by that memorial. Captains and crews looked at it and remembered. Remembered why they were still kind. Remembered why they still helped. Remembered why they would always choose mercy when possible, but also remembered why they kept their weapons ready. One day a young alien child visited the memorial with her school. She was from a species that had once demanded free human help. Her teachers had brought her class to teach them about respect and consequences. The child stood in front of the memorial for a long time. Then she asked her teacher a question. Why were humans called the gentle giants if they were so dangerous? The teacher thought carefully before answering. She explained that humans were gentle because they chose to be, not because they had to be, not because they were weak. They chose kindness even though they were strong. They chose mercy even though they could fight. That choice was what made them gentle. The child thought about this. Then she asked another question. What happened if someone hurt humans anyway? The teacher pointed at the memorial, at the 200 names, at the inscription underneath. She said that this was what happened. This was the lesson the galaxy learned. This was the price of mistaking kindness for weakness. Ambassador Daewon was visiting the memorial that day. He heard the teacher and the child talking. He walked over to them. The child looked up at him with big eyes. She recognized him from her history lessons. She asked him the same question she had asked her teacher. Why were humans gentle? Daewon knelt down so he was at the child's level. He looked into her eyes. For the first time in 2 years, he smiled a real smile. Not a diplomatic smile, not a cold smile. Just a genuine expression of warmth. He told her that humans were gentle because being gentle was better. It was better to help than to hurt. Better to heal than to harm. Better to choose kindness even when anger would be easier. Humans knew this because they had tried the other way. Long ago, they had hurt each other badly. They had learned that violence only created more violence. So they chose to be different. They chose to be gentle. They chose to be kind. And they would keep making that choice as long as they could. The child nodded. She understood. Then she asked the other question. What happened if someone hurt humans? Daewon's smile faded. He looked at the memorial, at the names of children who would never grow up. He was quiet for a moment. Then he looked back at the child. He told her that humans would remind them why they chose gentleness in the first place. The child thought about this. She thought she understood. Humans were gentle because they were strong enough to be gentle. They were kind because they were capable of being unkind. They chose peace because they knew how to make war. The choice was what mattered. The choice was what made them special. Daewon stood up. He thanked the teacher for bringing her students to learn. He told the child to remember this lesson. to remember that kindness was precious because it was chosen, to remember that peace must be protected. Then he walked away. He had work to do. The galaxy needed diplomats and healers and peacemakers. Humanity would still provide them. They would still choose to be gentle, but everyone would remember. Everyone would know. The gentle giant was still gentle by choice, and that choice could be revoked if necessary. No species forgot the day humanity's forbearance snapped. They remembered the lesson well. And because they remembered, they never needed to learn it again.